Corey and the defendant went into the gym, and you'll see what happened next. Because that gym had a surveillance system, and you will see what this defendant did to his son inside that gym.
This man is accused of killing his own 6-year-old child. Today, we will discuss this terrifying and mysterious story with you in detail. The criminal trial of a Barnegat father who stands accused of endangering and ultimately murdering his 6-year-old son got underway this past week. What are the facts? On April 2nd, 2021, 6-year-old Corey Micciolo died about an hour after his father, Christopher Gregor, 31, of Barnegat, brought his limp body into the emergency room at Southern Ocean Medical Center in neighboring Stafford. The child coded twice and died at 5:03 p.m. after life-saving measures were unsuccessful. What was the cause of Corey Micciolo's death? Assistant Ocean County Prosecutor Jamie Schrawn told the jury in her opening statement Tuesday at Gregor's trial that the child died as a result of blunt force trauma. Corey had contusions all over his body, and his heart and liver were lacerated, she said.
After that day, when Corey went back to school during the week, his teacher, his first grade teacher, started to notice some bruises on Corey. She was concerned. She's going to tell you that after March 25th of 2021, Corey was never physically back in person in school ever again. During this time, Corey's mom was also concerned. She had seen bruises as well. She was so concerned that she filed an emergent application with the court to get custody. On April 1st of 2021, Corey's mom picked him up for her only visitation she had had that week, or during the week, which was 3 hours, and she brought him to a pediatrician. Corey spoke to the pediatrician. The pediatrician saw Corey's bruises. She too was concerned. So she sent Corey and his mom to a local hospital nearby. Ultimately, Corey was seen at Jersey Shore University Medical Center. And while at Jersey Shore, doctors looked at Corey's body. They checked his lungs. They checked his bones. They checked his labs. And shortly after 1 o'clock in the morning or around there, Corey was discharged. He was medically cleared for release because there was nothing wrong with Corey's lungs. There was nothing wrong with Corey's bones, and his labs were normal. Corey was fine except for his bruises.
During the state's opening statements, New Jersey prosecutor Jamie Schrawn told jurors, healthy 6-year-olds don't just die in the course of a business day, adding they'll be firmly convinced Christopher Gregor murdered his young son. What does the defense say? Gallucci, Gregor's defense attorney, has sought to paint Breanna Micciolo as a less-than-ideal parent herself. He told the jury she had signed her son out of Community Medical Center in Toms River at some point before he died, against medical advice, even though she was told Corey might have sepsis as a result of complications from pneumonia. Yes, the Treadmill incident and an unrelated game of football caused Corey's bruises, Gallucci said, but he insisted the Treadmill incident did not cause the child's death. When you see that video, you're going to be horrified, you're going to be mortified, Gallucci warned the jury, making no excuses for his client. Nevertheless, that's not what killed Corey, he said. Corey's death had absolutely nothing to do with that treadmill, Gallucci insisted. Micciolo had Corey when she was 17. After a paternity test confirmed Gregor was the father, he took custody of the boy and brought him to his family's home to live with them. While Breanna Micciolo had visitation rights, she temporarily lost them at one point because of drug problems, Gallucci said. On cross-examination this past week, Breanna Micciolo acknowledged a past drug addiction, but said she had sought treatment. and her visitation rights were restored. Nevertheless, on the same day her son died, but before she learned of his death, she admitted that she had texted a boyfriend asking him to get her methamphetamines.
Dr. Larkin found that Corey's blood results from Southern Ocean showed incredibly high white blood count, high glucose, and high lactic acid, and said that's all indicative of sepsis caused by an infection. The same sepsis that Jersey Shore Medical Center told Breanna Micciolo, do not take this child from the hospital. He possibly has sepsis. We need to evaluate him. Chief Medical Examiner here in Ocean County, his evaluation. You're going to hear evidence. Sepsis, infection, not murder. A CAT scan ordered after Corey's death by Dr. Larkin, evidence will show, showed the possibility of pneumonia. Pneumonia is an infection, and an infection causes sepsis. So the Ocean County Medical Examiner, the first person to evaluate Corey, which, by the way, is 12 days after the Treadmill. 12 days. You're going to hear testimony that when he gets to Southern Ocean Medical Center, there's no report of any additional bruising since March 20th. You're going to see there's no signs of, Ms. Schroen said, I hit with a baseball bat, stepped on, I don't know what she said, whatever she said. You're going to hear evidence that doesn't show any proof of any of that. As a matter of fact, their own chief medical examiner, who did the autopsy, was inconclusive and could not come up with a cause or manner of death yet, pending investigation and toxicology reports. And he said, their chief medical examiner said that the injuries sustained to Corey were all due to life-saving techniques. He left the hospital. He was distraught. He was upset. He told the nurse, I need privacy. And he left. You're going to hear testimony that he called his parents immediately. Said Corey passed. They, Dave and Carolyn, you will hear, went immediately to the hospital and called the Stafford Police Department to tell them their grandson had just died in the hospital. You need to do an investigation here. They reported it. What did Breanna and Rebecca do immediately? Talk about him leaving. Rebecca and Breanna immediately turned to social media, where they tortured and crucified that man, posting a picture the same day of him in a prison outfit behind bars, wishing him death. They formed a chat group on Facebook dedicated to Corey, but evidence is going to show it really wasn't dedicated to Corey. It was dedicated into harassing the Gregor family. So much so, you're going to hear testimony that both Breanna and Rebecca were arrested in Monroe, New Jersey, and pled guilty for harassing Dave and Carolyn Gregor by protesting in front of the house, putting up posters on
Objection,
telephone.
Judge.
2021 at approximately
The mother of Corey Micciolo took the stand Tuesday before opening statements and identified the 6-year-old's father, Christopher Gregor, who is accused of murdering him. Gregor allegedly abused the young boy to death by forcing him to run on a treadmill at high speeds. Breanna Micciolo reported Gregor for abuse over 100 times before the child died. Micciolo nearly broke down in tears while recalling the last moments she shared with her son.
8:41 p.m.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Now, calling your attention to April 2nd of 2021 at approximately 3:30 p.m., did you have a phone conversation with the defendant in regard to your son, Corey?
Yes.
And can you tell the court what the defendant said in that phone conversation?
He told me Corey wasn't feeling good. That he was lethargic and he was throwing up and his legs hurt. He was just sick. And he asked me for Corey's insurance card and to send it to him.
And did the defendant tell you where he was taking Corey?
He said he was going to the hospital. He was taking Corey to the hospital.
And did he tell you which hospital he was going to take Corey to?
No.
Now, Breanna, you just viewed video A. Can you tell the court who is present on that video?
Myself, the defendant, and my son Corey.
And who is the adult male that is located on that video?
The defendant,
And who is a child who is located on that video?
Corey.
And can you tell the court where are you located in that video?
I was in my car.
And calling your attention now to, I guess we'll go with video B, if we get permission to publish.
Please go ahead.
Just tell me when to stop. I'll have to fast forward through some of it.
Now, Breanna, you just observed video B. And can you tell the court who is the adult male located in that video?
The defendant.
And who is the child located in that video?
Corey.
And have you been to that gym complex?
I have.
And does that accurately depict the gym complex at the Atlantic Heights Clubhouse?
Yes.
And does it accurately depict what it looked like on March 20th of 2021 as shown in this video?
Yes.
Your Honor, in regard to videos C and D, I believe that there would be the same proffer by the witness.
Those are redundant for the purpose of this hearing.
They are, Judge. They are videos that follow one another in a sequence.
Mr. Gallucci, any objection to not playing those other videos at this hearing?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Any further questions?
No, Judge. Thank you.
Mr. Gallucci.
Good morning, Ms. Micciolo.
Good morning.
So, the recording on April 2nd, 2021, when did you first become aware of that recording?
When Dennis Mitchell called me and asked me about it,
Okay. And do you recall when that was?
I would say a few months later.
Okay. So it was still in 2021?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did he tell you?
He just asked if I knew there was a recording the day that Corey passed away.
And did you know that?
No.
Do you know how that recording happened then?
It seems like it was by accident.
So you accidentally recorded the drop-off of your son?
Yes.
Okay. Had you ever done that before?
Early on in the custody battle, yes.
Okay. So, but early on when you did that, did you do it on purpose?
Yes.
Okay. So this time you're saying it was not on purpose.
It was not.
And when you became aware of it, did you recall that conversation with your son?
I think so, yeah.
So what do you do recall?
I remember it, yeah.
Okay. Did you remember it after you heard it?
Yes.
His father allegedly forced his 6-year-old son to run on the treadmill because he believed he was too fat. The boy later died from injuries believed to have resulted from chronic abuse. The footage showed Gregor repeatedly putting his son on the treadmill, even though he could not keep up and kept falling. Once, when Gregor put his son back on the treadmill, he looked like he bit him in the head. Father Christopher Gregor and his child, Corey Micciolo. 2 weeks later, on April 2nd, Gregor said he brought his son to the hospital after the boy woke up stumbling, slurring his words, feeling nauseated and short of breath. Corey was taken for a CT scan, where he began having seizures. Life-saving measures were taken, but Corey could not be saved. What does the prosecution allege happened to Corey? On March 20th, 2021, security surveillance footage from the gym at Gregor's apartment complex recorded the child running on a treadmill as his father lifted weights. Gregor was also seen on the video going over to the treadmill and continually increasing its speed, which caused Corey to fall off the machine, face first, at least 6 times. Dr. Ye Kaiao Ong, who evaluated Corey the night of April 1st, 2021, testified that aside from some bruises and scratches which varied by degree and age, Corey appeared to be in good health when he was discharged from Jersey Shore University Medical Center just after midnight on April 2nd, 2021, with no signs of infection or sepsis.
We marked down all over the body, and we saw like some bruises, abrasion. The most significant one is on the chest bone area, like about 5 by 5 centimeter bruise. The rest of them are small minor scratch and bruises on the head, anterior chest wall, and legs.
So did you observe any scratches on Corey's body?
Yes, I saw some crack.
And did you observe any abrasions on Corey's body?
Yes, I saw some abrasion.
Now, calling your attention to the abrasion, specifically marked as 2, can you tell the jurors where this abrasion was located on Corey's body?
Abrasion is on the left temple area, one abrasion, and another one on the right knee area.
And specifically in regard to bruise number 3, can you tell the jurors where that bruise was located?
Yes, as I mentioned before, this is in the mid-sternum area. Size is like about 5 by 5 centimeter circular.
And can you tell the jurors about bruise number 4, which was located?
Bruise number 4 is on the left side of the abdominal area. We call it flex area.
And what about bruise number 5?
Bruise number 5 is at the left arm area.
And what about bruise number 6?
Bruise number 6 on the left elbow area.
And what about number 7? Can you describe that for the jurors?
Bruise number 7 is on the left, the extensor aspect of the left hand area around the wrist.
And what about bruise number 8? Can you tell the jurors where that was located?
Bruise number 8 is on the right side of the posterior aspect of the arm area.
And what about abrasion number 9? Can you tell the jurors where that was located?
Abrasion number 9 is on the right knee area.
And what about bruise number 10? Where was that located?
On the right legs below the knee joint area.
And what about scratch number 11? Where was that located?
It-
Observe any abrasions on Corey's body.
Yes, I saw some abrasion.
Now, calling your attention to the abrasion, specifically marked as 2, can you tell the jurors where this abrasion was located on Corey's body?
Abrasion is on the left temple area, one abrasion, and another one on the right knee area.
And specifically in regard to bruise number 3, can you tell the jurors where that bruise was located?
Yes, as I mentioned before, this is in the mid-sternum area. Size is like about 5 by 5 centimeter circular.
And can you tell the jurors about bruise number 4, which was located?
Bruise number 4 is on the left side of the abdominal area. We call it flex area.
And what about bruise number 5?
Bruise number 5 is at the left arm area.
And what about bruise number 6?
Bruise number 6 on the left elbow area.
And what about number 7? Can you describe that for the jurors?
Bruise number 7 is on the left, the extensor aspect of the left hand area around the wrist.
And what about bruise number 8? Can you tell the jurors where that was located?
Bruise number 8 is on the right side of the posterior aspect of the arm area.
And what about abrasion number 9? Can you tell the jurors where that was located?
Abrasion number 9 is on the right knee area.
And what about bruise number 10? Where was that located?
On the right legs below the knee joint area.
And what about scratch number 11? Where was that located?
It's on the left legs below the knee joint area.
And what about bruise number 12? Where was that located?
Bruise number 12 is on the right temple area.
Now, doctor, can you tell the jurors what your impression was regarding the bruising that you observed to Corey's body on April 1st when you had observed him in the emergency room?
Right, I saw like a multiple ecchymosis.
Let me just stop you there. What's ecchymosis mean?
Ecchymosis means there is some bleeding underneath of the skin for like a few hours to few days.
And what other impressions did you have regarding the bruising?
Those bruises are in various stages, as I mentioned before. Some of them are maybe hours, some of them are maybe days. I cannot tell you exactly more than that.
Doctor, when Corey was at Jersey Shore, did you order blood work?
Yes, I did.
And was Corey's blood collected on April 1st, 2021 at approximately 10:49 that evening?
That exactly.
Gregor's defense quizzed Ong on whether he followed the proper procedures in discharging Corey and releasing him to his mother in the early morning hours, around 1 a.m. of April 4th, 2021. Ong insisted that Corey's blood work and other diagnostic tests came back within the normal range, and that discharge with instructions to follow up with a child abuse specialist was the appropriate step. One of the investigators in the case, Matthew Scuddy, testified to the autopsy performed on Corey. Scuddy also described going to Christopher Gregor's home. He said the smell of cleaned or dried vomit was emanating from the victim's bedroom.
What happened when you went inside?
When we go inside, we do an initial, first the responding Barnegat Township police officers do initial clearing for safety to make sure that there's no one inside hiding or anyone else injured inside the residence. At that point, we begin our search process. The scene then gets turned over to us once it's made safe, and we document everything that we see through photographs and reports.
Did you make any observations of the residence once you were inside?
Just that it was a standard apartment. It was a second story, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen, a family room. But nothing really jumped out at us at that moment.
Other than visual observations, did you make any other observations with any of your other senses?
Yes, there was a smell emanating from what we kind of narrowed down to the child's bedroom of the lingering odor of either cleaned up or dried vomit.
And how were you able to narrow it down to that location within the apartment?
The smell was stronger coming from there. We didn't see anything, but we were able to smell it.
So you didn't find any vomit?
No.
What else did you do when you were in the apartment that night?
We did a quick initial search of the residence. We didn't want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb just yet because we had an autopsy scheduled for 9 a.m. the next morning. So in this case, because we didn't have much information as to why we had a deceased 6-year-old, we decided as the investigative team that it would be better to do a quick cursory search of the apartment and then secure it for the night and go back the next day.
What did the cursory search consist of?
We're basically looking for anything that may jump out at us at that point, and also looking in areas to see if there's something we can find that may lead us to what happened. So we, with the apartment being pretty minimally furnished and having minimal items inside of it, it was a rather quick search, but we were able to look inside the top layer of the garbage can as well as the family room and the bedrooms.
While you were there, did you seize any evidence?
That night, phones were taken, as well as a paper that was from Hackensack Meridian Hospital for Corey Micciolo.
And where were you when you first saw Mr. Gregor with Corey?
William Doyle, who worked as a triage nurse at Southern Ocean Medical Center, described seeing Gregor bring Corey to the emergency room on April 2nd. Doyle described Gregor as having a clinical affect and didn't seem upset.
I was in the waiting room. I was speaking to another patient at the time. I'm right near the door speaking to another patient. I did not hear any commotion. I did not hear any urgent sound that would redirect my attention. A registrar came up to me and said, "Bill, you have to look at this." So I went over to Corey, and he was in the arms of Chris at the waiting room entrance, or just past the waiting room entrance near the desk.
Now, the first time that you observed the defendant with Corey, can you explain to the jurors the position of Corey in relation to the defendant?
Corey was over, Corey was in Chris's arms. His arms were over Chris's shoulders. His legs were dangling. His arms did not look like they had much movement to them. His legs did not look like they had much movement to him. His head was rested on Chris's shoulder. His head was his face was difficult to visualize. So when I first approached them, I knew that something was concerning, but I couldn't see everything I needed to see. So I was depending on Chris to convey a sense of urgency or unwellness that I did not get from him at first. It was more of a clinical description of what was going on, and I did not immediately feel I had to rush them back. I definitely knew it was concerning, but I needed just a little more information. If I saw Corey's face right away, it would have been much easier, but Corey's face was on Chris's shoulder.
So the first time that you made this observation, that would be, the two of them would have been in the lobby area.
Yes.
And did you approach the defendant in the lobby area of the emergency room?
Yes.
And what immediate observations were you able to make of Corey in the lobby area?
So I went over to them, and I was splitting my attention between Chris and Corey. What I could tell was that there wasn't a lot of spontaneous movement from Corey. He was not really moving on his own. He appeared to have a lack of tone to his muscles, and there was a lot of support coming from Chris in keeping him in the position that he was in.
Did you speak to the defendant in the lobby area of the emergency room?
Yes.
And would this be a practice or a common practice to engage in something like that?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors what the defendant said?
Chris told me that he introduced himself, who he was the father, he was the son, and he told me that this was around 3, nearly 4 p.m. He told me that earlier in the day, around 9 a.m., his son was dropped off to him, was with his mother the night before. He did tell me that the patient was at Jersey Shore University Hospital and had a workup and was discharged. And just a side note, once you hear that, less than 12 hours later, you kind of go, okay, like maybe he's not that sick. So, I need more information. So talk more. So Chris told me that earlier that morning he appeared loopy, he was very drowsy, and he put him to bed. And later in the afternoon, Corey continued to be loopy and drowsy. And when all that time passed and he was still fatigued and not himself, that's when he brought him into the ER. So that's what he told me.
Corey's manner of death is homicide.
The search was, can your phone be tracked in airplane mode?
The next one.
The next search was for April 2nd, 2021 at 6:10:35 p.m. for, can my car be tracked?
An investigation that has been going on for days. Did the father kill his own child? Today, let's criticize this case, which has been trying to be solved in courtrooms for weeks, in detail. I told the story from the beginning in my other YouTube videos. I suggest you take a look at them to watch. Let's briefly summarize. This tragic incident from Middlesex County unveils the dark tale of a murder that occurred in Barnegat. The relationship between a father and son takes a heartbreaking turn, revealing shocking and saddening truths behind the event. The 31-year-old Gregor stands accused of killing his 6-year-old son, setting off a chain of horrifying details. According to court documents, Gregor's phone records provide crucial clues to unraveling the mystery. Strangely, his search history includes questions like, do red marks turn into bruises? And can a phone be tracked in airplane mode? Which raise intriguing questions about the mindset behind the crime. As we delve deeper into the details, the dynamics between Gregor and his son's mother, Breanna Micciolo, become significant. According to Sergeant Raymond Coles' testimony, Micciolo attempted to reach Gregor 3 times shortly after Corey's death, but received no response, adding to the mystery surrounding the incident. The revelation of 3,166 deleted messages from Gregor's phone is equally compelling. The contents and reasons behind these deleted messages deepen the mystery of the case. Investigations reveal messages sent by Gregor to Corey's mother on April 1st, 2021, shedding light on the progression of events and the tension in their relationship.
So the first hit in the Safari web browser on this was a search conducted on March 25th, 2021 at 9:36:31 p.m. The body of the search states, will red marks turn into bruises?
And could you please move on to the next one?
Sure. The next search is on April 1st, 2021 at 8:43:36 p.m. The search was Neptune non-emergency police.
The next one.
Next search is on April 1st, 2021 at 8:49:05 p.m. The search was Jersey Shore Medical Center.
Please move on to the next one.
The next one is a web history on April 2nd, 2021 at 3:08:37 p.m. The search was lost consciousness, sleepy and nauseous - Google search.
Please move on to the next one.
Next entry is April 2nd, 2021 at 6:10:22 p.m. The search was, can your phone be tracked in airplane mode?
The next one.
The next search was for April 2nd, 2021 at 6:10:35 p.m. for Can My Car Be Tracked?
The next one.
The next search is on April 3rd, 2021 at 3:14:24 p.m. The search is What causes a rise in blood sugar in white blood cells?
The next one.
Gotta rip your staple keys. Can't see the time. Next search was for April 3rd, 2021 at 3:55:40 p.m. The search is Could internal bleeding raise your blood sugar levels?
Please move on to the next one.
The next search is on April 3rd, 2021 at 3:56:55 p.m. The search is How does gastrointestinal bleeding happen?
Please move on to the next one.
The next search is on April 3rd, 2021 at 4:28:21 p.m. The search is How does gastrointestinal bleeding, how pong to die? It's P-O-N-G, to die.
Could you please move on to the next one?
Sure. The next search is April 3rd, 2021 at 6:55:22 p.m. The search is Can a GI bleed be slow?
Can you please move on to the next one?
Next search is going to be on April 4th, 2021. The value is McGee Tyson Airport, parentheses, TYS, and parentheses, comma, 2055 Alcoa Highway, Alcoa, Tennessee, 37701. Position is parentheses, 35.081033, comma, dash, 83.993889.
Is there a next one?
There is.
Could you please tell us what it is?
Next search was on April 4th, 2021 at 9:58:03 a.m. The search was, there was a murder determined from an autopsy. How long to file charges?
Is there another one?
The last one is on April 4th, 2021 at 10:21:16 a.m. The search was, how long after an autopsy to file charges get filed?
Could you please describe to me what the first task was and what you did?
Sure. The first thing they proposed to me was to identify if conversations between Christopher Gregor and Breanna Micciolo were deleted from Christopher Gregor's iPhone. If messages were deleted, please identify when they were deleted.
What did you do with regard to that?
So essentially, I opened up Ms. Micciolo's phone extraction, and I opened up Mr. Gregor's phone extraction. On Mr. Gregor's phone extraction, there were 0 text messages with Ms. Micciolo. On Ms. Micciolo's phone extraction, there were 3,466 text messages saved with a conversation with Mr. Gregor. That was the first indicator that something was deleted from Mr. Gregor's phone. I looked at the message retention settings within Mr. Gregor's iPhone and saw the value for message retention duration on his phone was set to forever, as in messages would not be deleted unless a user did it themselves. In order to kind of really dig in to make sure they were received on this device, I opened up the sms.db. That's going to be the text message database for Mr. Gregor's iPhone. And to give you an idea of what a database is or what it looks like, the best way I can describe it is to compare it to a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. The Excel spreadsheet is going to have multiple rows and columns. On Excel, you can have different pages, and essentially inside the database, there's going to be different tables. These tables cross-reference with what's known as the primary key, where you can search additional data from different tables by referencing the primary key ID of an entry. Databases will generally run sequentially, as in they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If there's gaps in the sequence, it's indicative that content is no longer present on the device. Whether that means it was automated or automatically deleted by the phone itself, or if a user might have gone in and deleted the entry. So in this case, what I did is I opened up just 6 random messages from Ms. Gregor's phone that were sent to Mr. Gregor's phone. I compared the native timestamp of when those messages were sent from her phone, and I corresponded that with the text message database on Mr. Gregor's phone. And during that, I identified a sequence gap of approximately 7 messages, which would be consistent with entries that would have been there from Ms. Micciolo's phone. I repeated that again, picking a random message, searching Mr. Gregor's iPhone's text message database, and identified that the time a sent message from Ms. Micciolo's phone was consistent with a missing entry from Mr. Gregor's phone. Last thing I did is I checked to make sure that Miss Gregor's contact was not blocked at the time when I received the phone, and her phone contact was not blocked.
Sorry, can I stop you? Do you mean Miss Breanna Micciolo?
I do, yes.
Okay.
So Miss Micciolo's phone number was not blocked by Mr. Gregor's iPhone. So based off this, seeing as there were missing gaps in his text message database, consistent with messages that were sent from her phone, it's my opinion that Mr. Gregor deleted the text message conversations with him and Miss Micciolo on his phone. I have no way to tell you when those messages were deleted.
And that's the opinion that you rendered with regard to task.
It was.
And were you able to print out all of the text correspondence between Ms. Micciolo and the defendant from Ms. Micciolo's extraction?
I did.
Approximately how many pages was that?
880.
So 880 pages of text messages were gone from the defendant's phone.
That's correct.
What was the next task that you were asked to complete?
So when the case officer reviewing the phone extraction, they notified there was really no messages sent or received to the device between the afternoon or evening of April 2nd of 2021 until approximately 2 o'clock on April 3rd of 2021. Their primary goal was to identify if the phone was either shut off or what the status of the phone was during that time frame.
And what did you do with regard to that second request?
Sure. So the first place I really went to was, it's called the knowledgec.db database. KnowledgeC at the time was mostly like an event logging feature of an iPhone tracking different activities going on that device. I looked at the device being unlocked, and I could see that his device was unlocked multiple times between the hours of approximately 7 p.m. until 7 p.m. on April 2nd until 1 p.m. on April 3rd. In addition to looking at the KnowledgeC logs for device being unlocked and locked, I went to what's known as the routine D or cache.sqlite. This database is going to be where your phone is storing what's known as significant location data. Significant location data is going to be data that an iPhone is going to use to help with predictive traffic routing or to help set memories in your photographs. During this time frame from the evening of April 2nd until the afternoon of April 3rd, there are approximately 60,000 GPS fixes. GPS fix essentially being a ping for where that phone was. These logs will not generate if the phone is powered off. And I can identify that the phone could be tracked all the way from New Jersey down to the southwestern portion of Arkansas. And the last thing I did to review this was I wanted to check the actual airplane mode status. Within the KnowledgeC database, I specifically searched for the airplane mode flag, and I could see the phone was placed in and taken out of airplane mode several times during that evening. Most notable being the phone was placed in airplane mode on April 2nd at 6:38 p.m. and it was not taken out of airplane mode until 2:13 p.m. on April 3rd.
But Corey died.
On the fifth day of the trial, the state's forensic pathologist, Dr. Thomas Andrew, was called to testify. He provided insights into the cause and manner of Corey's death, stating that the child died from blunt force trauma to the chest and abdomen, which resulted in a torn heart. Dr. Andrew also asserted that the manner of death was homicide.
Of blunt impact injuries of the chest and abdomen, with laceration of the heart, left pulmonary contusion, and laceration and contusion of the liver.
And can you explain to the jurors when you say cause of death, what does that mean?
Cause of death is, it sounds simple enough, but it's something that's very specific. Cause of death is the disease or injury or combination of those things that initiates what's ultimately a lethal train of events, and without which death would not have occurred. So there are many, many, many causes of death.
And what about blunt force trauma? Can you explain to the jurors what that means?
In forensic pathology, there are various kinds of external forces that can act on the body. There could be penetrating trauma, such as that from gunshot wounds or stab wounds, or there can be blunt impact injury. And in that situation, you have force applied to the body over a much broader area than a single bullet or blade would cause. That blunt impact could be a small area or a large area, but it produces a different kind of injury than penetrating trauma does. And the kinds of injuries associated with blunt impact include contusions or bruising of the skin or internal organs, lacerations, tearing of tissue because of the result of the blunt force applied to it, or fracture of bone.
And what affects blunt force trauma and the impact on the body?
Well, the impact can be anything from minor to life-threatening. If you get up in the middle of the night in a strange hotel room and hit your shin against a nightstand, that may raise a contusion. But all that is bleeding under the surface of the skin, and that will resolve over time, and that will be fine. If you were to fall against that nightstand, you might sustain a laceration of your scalp. That may require stitches, but likewise you would recover from that. If you sustain any of these kinds of blunt impact injuries with sufficient severity, it could conceivably bring about your death if they were severe enough.
After reviewing the materials in this case, did you formulate an opinion as to the decedent's manner of death?
I did.
And can you tell the jurors what your opinion is?
Corey's manner of death is homicide. While there are many causes of death, typically in forensic pathology, there are only 5 manners of death. And manner of death is simply a one-word description to explain how a death came about. And those 5 are natural, accident, suicide, homicide, or in rare instances, undetermined. In Corey's case, in that these injuries could not have been inflicted by himself with any kind of intent, it's certainly not suicide. These injuries, given their pattern and distribution, are consistent with having been inflicted by another person. Therefore, any death that is related to the actions of another person is, from a medical examiner's standpoint, from an epidemiological or public health standpoint, homicide. Now, it doesn't have any legal significance, but that's the way that a medical examiner certifies it. So Corey's death was at the hands of another person, therefore it is a homicide.
Does a case histology impact the determination of manner of death?
Well, it can in certain instances. If you have a gunshot wound to the head with a perforation of the skull and brain, histology or examining tissue under the microscope doesn't add a whole lot. But in a case like this, certainly the examination of the tissues under the microscope was helpful in reaching my conclusion.
Okay. Well, like I said, when I first got out of the car and you guys searched me.
In a chilling and heartbreaking case, Christopher Gregor stands accused of the unthinkable, causing the death of his son, Corey Micciolo. On April 2nd, 2021, Corey was rushed to the emergency room at Southern Ocean Medical Center in Stafford Township by his father. Tragically, Corey passed away shortly after arriving, and Gregor now faces charges of his murder. The story becomes even more harrowing when considering an earlier incident. On March 20th, 2021, security footage from the gym at Gregor's apartment complex captured a disturbing event. The video allegedly shows Gregor increasing the speed of a treadmill on which Corey was running, causing the young boy to fall. For this, Gregor is also charged with endangering the welfare of a child. Mario Gallucci, Gregor's defense attorney, anticipates a lengthy and grueling trial. Addressing Superior Court Judge, Gallucci remarked his testimony will be a long day. He predicted that if Gregor begins his testimony next Friday, it could potentially continue through the following Tuesday. The prosecution and defense have lined up key witnesses. Next Wednesday, a state medical expert is scheduled to take the stand, followed by renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, who will testify for the defense on Friday. Gallucci told the jury in his opening statement that Baden would argue Corey's death was likely caused by sepsis, resulting from an infection such as pneumonia. After Baden's testimony, Gregor is expected to testify. Previously, 2 Barnegat police officers and a sergeant from the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office provided brief statements for the state. Officer Daniel Dugan and Patrolman Angel Roman recounted a welfare check they conducted on March 28, 2021, at the request of Corey's mother, Breanna Micciolo.
Yes, Judge. So on March 28th of 2021, you were dispatched to the Barnegat Police Headquarters, correct?
Yes.
And that would have been at approximately 7:57 p.m.?
I don't recall exactly, but yeah.
And when you got there, you spoke to a Breanna Micciolo, correct?
Yes.
And Breanna is the mother of Corey Micciolo?
Yes.
And Breanna had made a complaint regarding bruises on her son.
Yes.
And based upon your conversation with Breanna, you went to 900 Barnegat Boulevard, correct?
Yes.
And that was an apartment at the Atlantic Heights complex in Barnegat, correct?
Yes.
And Patrolman Roman, he also went with you to that apartment, correct?
Yes.
And when you went to the apartment, you were there to conduct a child welfare check.
Yes.
And the purpose of a child welfare check is to make sure that a child isn't in immediate danger, correct?
Yes.
And in essence, the purpose is to lay eyes on that child to make sure that they're not in imminent harm, correct?
Yes.
And you got to the apartment and you met with Christopher Gregor, right?
Yes.
And you asked to see Corey.
Yes.
And you saw Corey, and you saw that he had a bruise on his legs, correct?
Yes.
And you saw that Corey had bruises on his arms.
Yes.
You saw that Corey had a bruise on his hip.
Yes.
You saw that Corey had a bruise on his chest.
Yes.
You also saw that Corey had a laceration above his eyebrow, right?
Yes.
And you spoke to Christopher Gregor at the apartment.
Yes.
And you also spoke to Corey, right?
Yes.
And when you spoke to Corey, you spoke to him in the presence of his father, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't separate Corey from his father when you talked to the defendant, correct?
No.
And based upon your immediate observations, Corey did not appear to be in distress at that moment, except for your observations of the bruises, correct?
Correct.
And you had no idea when you were at that apartment that there had been this video with the defendant interacting with his son on a treadmill, correct?
Correct.
And you have no idea how Corey actually got those bruises, correct?
Corey told me that.
Without saying what Corey said, it was just right. You had no idea. You have no personal knowledge as to how Corey got those bruises, correct?
Correct.
Now, you actually called in a referral to DCP&P regarding your observations, correct?
Correct.
No further questions, Judge.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Judge. How are you?
Good.
So, you went there to do a welfare check, based upon what Breanna Micciolo had reported.
Yes.
When you went there, you met with Corey, and you met with his father. Am I right?
Yes.
And what is a welfare check?
Just to make sure that the child, or any welfare check, to make sure that that person's not in immediate danger, self-harm, anything like that, just make sure that they're okay.
Okay. Now, Ms. Lento asked you if you were aware of a treadmill video. Am I correct?
Correct.
Well, you were aware of a treadmill when you spoke to them, weren't you?
After he told me about it, correct.
Okay. And when he told you about it, did he explain to you how...
Objection, Judge, it's hearsay.
Okay. Do you recall anything about the treadmill?
I recall him telling me about...
Look what the child says is hearsay, so.
So now, after you met with Corey and his father, and you did their welfare check, did you, as an officer, make a decision?
Yes.
Okay. And the decision you made during the welfare check was that there was nothing suspicious, as you just testified, right?
Yes.
And that there was actually a good relationship between the father, Christopher, and his son, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you took no further action, am I right?
I mean, we call it Child Protective Services.
But you had to because it was a welfare check of a child.
Correct, yeah. When we saw the bruises, we wanted to obviously make sure that everything is okay.
You need to, as an officer, you needed to report that you had this interaction with these two people, right?
Yes.
And after that interaction, you found nothing suspicious and a good relationship between a father and a son, right?
Yes.
What made you think to yourself, as you were sitting there talking to the two of them, that they had a good relationship?
He said that the child rides his bike, they play football together. Trollman Roman said that he's observed them playing football.
He may be qualified. Roman statements are hearsay right now.
Gotcha. But yeah, just nothing seemed suspicious while we were on scene there.
No further questions.
Your Honor, thank you. So you wrote a report in this matter, didn't you?
Yes.
And in your report, I believe that you used the words appeared to have a good relationship, correct?
Correct.
And you used the word appeared to have a good relationship because you didn't know the extent of the relationship between Corey and his father, correct?
Correct.
And you hadn't been in that apartment for more than, a few minutes when you used the term appeared to have a relationship?
Correct.
And you didn't know what would have been happening in the apartment when you weren't there, correct?
Correct.
And you wouldn't have known what would have been happening in the apartment behind closed doors when you were not at the apartment, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Judge. Nothing further.
But if you thought that there was a child that was in danger, that you were directly sent there to look at, would you have taken further action?
Yes.
Would you have written in your report if you thought that there was something amiss or something happening to a child? Would you have put in your report, nothing suspicious, seems to have a good relationship with each other? Would you have written that if you thought there was something wrong?
Yeah.
Thank you. Who are you employed by?
Barnegat Township Police Department.
And how long have you been employed by the Barnegat Township Police Department?
Just under 10 years.
10 years. In March of 2021, were you assigned an assignment to train another officer?
Yes, sir.
And who is that?
Patrolman Dugan.
Okay. And you just walked out of here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you were training Officer Dugan, let me direct your attention to March 28th of 2021. Did you get a call to do a welfare check?
Yes.
Okay, and that was at, where was that at?
We responded to police headquarters to meet with the complainant at that time.
Okay, and that was Ms. Micciolo?
Yes.
Breanna?
Yes.
Okay. And she gave you information, right?
Yes.
And then you responded to Barnegat with your fellow officer, right?
Yes, sir.
In your, at that time, how many years of experience did you have? 7? I'm talking March of 21.
Just under 7, yes.
Okay. Have you ever done a welfare check before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during a welfare check, what are you trained to do?
Depending on if it's a juvenile, adult, make sure they're in good health. If they're being treated okay, if they have enough food in the house, if it's an adult, depending on the circumstances,
Now,
what the complaint is.
since you're training Officer Dugan, are you explaining to him what a welfare check should be?
Yes.
Are you telling him the things that you should be looking for in a welfare check?
Yes.
Okay. Are you explaining to him that if certain things exist, we may have to do something else?
Yes.
Okay. Now, during this welfare check, did you have an opportunity to speak to Christopher Gregor and his son Corey?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during that welfare check, did you see any bruising? Did you see any bruising to Corey?
Yes.
Okay. And describe for us what you saw.
Saw the bruising on his chest, his hip, legs, arms, and I believe there was an abrasion above his eyebrow.
Now, after you spoke with Corey and Christopher Gregor, did you do anything else with respect to that welfare check?
Yes, we contacted DCP&P. I don't. Okay.
As per protocol?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you inform them, did you give them any information?
Yes, which wasn't the first time.
Okay. So, had you seen Christopher and Corey ever prior to that day in that area?
In Barnegat Township?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And where had you seen them?
Barnegat High School football field.
Okay. And what did you see them doing on that Barnegat football field?
Gregor was throwing passes to his son on the field in the end zone area.
No further questions. Thank you.
Where did you see the defendant and Corey throwing passes?
At the high school football field.
Okay, and when you saw this, where were you located?
In my patrol vehicle.
Okay. And do you remember the time that you saw this happen?
I don't recall exactly the time frame, but possibly a couple weeks to a month prior.
Before Corey passed?
Prior to my incident of doing the welfare check.
Okay, so you saw this a few weeks prior to that, and you were in your patrol car when you were able to see this?
Yes.
And you didn't stop at that point, correct?
No.
Okay. And from your vantage point, you didn't see Corey getting hurt, correct?
I think I saw him dive for a pass, but not specifically appearing hurt after diving for that pass.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. No further questions.
After sending the jury home on Wednesday, both defense and state attorneys, along with the judge, reviewed body camera footage of Christopher Gregor. The footage was taken 2 days after the tragic death of his son, Corey. In this footage, Gregor can be heard talking to a police officer about the last 2 years, expressing his distress by saying, "I'm going crazy right now."
On your resume? Yes, sir.
Nothing on public statement hurt me or anyway?
No, sir.
Let's hear you repeat nothing.
Is this your vehicle? Yes, sir. I can sense you guys searching the vehicle. It's nothing. I really am not.
That was on your bus over here.
You're telling me some kind of story about yes. Yeah. So I saw you. She actually asked me yesterday if she could fly out. She's like, I'd like to be there with you on the drive back. I don't want to be alone. And I said, okay. You've been dating her on and off again for 2 years and taking a second. I mean, take me a second to figure out one thing. I'm freaking out right now because there's like. I asked her. Come on, bro. You graduated college.
I went to grad school too, and I was a math teacher, so you know I don't know that. I just teach. Like those that can't do teach. But I mean, it's been an interesting past 2 years to say the least.
When you say date, you mean just like hooking up with?
Not really. She's met my son.
Actually,
She's met my son multiple times. I did. I just, like I said, I drew a blank. It's more of power.
So I asked her why she's here, what she was saying.
That she wanted to be here with me for the drive home, and she also might or might not say, because one of her main reasons was she didn't feel comfortable with me driving another 13 hours after I've driven so much already. Because I haven't slept well, as you can imagine. It's just, I don't know. I'm like numb at this point with everything going on in this now. I'm like a little freaked out because I don't know my attorney didn't tell me everything's going on. So like I said,
I'm talking to you.
and I mean, like I said, I think I said
We've had two things that don't add up this year recently in the South.
but that's usually where I keep my wallet, and I didn't realize that it wasn't here. And I played football, so I might have CTE shirts with that. I played outside linebacker. D2 school, it's NAIA, which is kind of like D2. It's Lakeland, Florida, at Southeastern University, like a little Christian school. But yeah, I mean,
Playing against the baseball.
okay. But like I said, when I first got out of the car and you guys searched me, I just made sure that,
Make sure you didn't have like a grenade stuck in your pants.
Exactly. But, if that was you, I apologize because I'm like tunnel vision. But I said, I don't mind if you guys search my people at all. Like, there's nothing that I'm hiding. I'm really not, so I'm not worried.
We'll get to that very soon, man. So, we're just hanging tight and trying to figure everything out while we're doing all this, so.
Sure. I imagine that you guys would know if there was a warrant associated with that.
Not necessarily.
I'm like,
State of New Jersey is ran by Democrats, so we don't really communicate very well.
you and me both. But I'm just, I don't know. Like, this is kind of got me a little freaked out now, Like, I was one of the politicians that I got plans for lunch. I don't really care. Thought it was some kind of internal bleed or something.
Head?
No.
Inside? Chest?
Like stomach area. Like something.
Yes.
I don't. He didn't have any bruising on him, and I knew when he got home he was tweaking, and I knew something was wrong with my gut, but I just thought she had him all waiting for everything that he needed to sleep. And I should have took him right from the beginning. There's a lot of me things like, it's partially my fault in the sense that if they truly did something, we wouldn't, like, you had a shoot like with a drug addict mother, but he'd still be alive if I never came back from Baltimore to fight for justice. And like, that's been going through my head this whole drive. It's just got me fucked up. They planted marijuana in my vehicle before, and I got arrested for that in New Jersey.
You arrested for marijuana?
And I lost my teacher license. I don't. She's a special kind of dirtbag.
You don't think they're being
No, 100% no.
This is your car that you leased?
Yes.
From Maryland, you live in New Jersey.
When I was in Maryland teaching, I got my master's degree from Johns Hopkins in special education and mathematics.
Yes.
To say the least. Sorry, it's mainly for medical, but for applied for education, but I would love to make a phone call.
Not right now, but once this is all, we get this all figured out. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to call and get it down here. No, I just want to call my attorney and be like, you know what, what's going on? No, believe it or not, a lot of people don't talk like that in New Jersey. So I'm like, it's the Northern New Jersey people that say, yeah, not a my so that's pretty fun. It's like Arkansas or Texas, but I drove hard. I genuinely, my brother's in California, part of me wanted to go visit him. Bless you. I left at 5:30 Friday afternoon. I drove straight without any sleep. I couldn't sleep.
I'm gonna need you to say you were in Texas, but if you were in Texas, where in Texas do you think? Or Arkansas?
I know, I definitely was in Arkansas at a point. But
that's way out of the way, right?
I was driving on, what was that, 40 or something? But
Where does it go to Texas from?
I don't know, sir. I've just been driving for it. My initial
I'm trying to get the border from Texas.
No. I mean, if I was, I wouldn't be heading back to the direction of New Jersey.
But hey, where was the conversation to pick her up at the airport here?
Last night.
At the airport in Knoxville?
Because the flight times lined up where she would get in at a specific time. I don't know, maybe it wasn't a flight in the morning. I didn't check the flights. I didn't question why. I just said okay. So.
It's a little more for us, but we got sleeves and stuff.
Yeah, I took mine off.
The sun's out there, right?
I actually ripped them off on the drive over.
Yeah?
I got
He's all down while driving.